now 7:03, and I am reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, April 12th, 2021. Jeannie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Peel.
Here.
Mr. Razak.
Here.
Ms. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Grover.
Here.
Ms. Deming.
Present.
Mr. Rising.
Here.
Mr. Karubis.
Here. We have a quorum. Ms. Peel, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some board salutes. Mr. Rising.
Mattia Valley High School senior John White, who has been nominated in the Best Actor category by Broadway in Chicago, Illinois High School Music Theater Awards. The Jimmy Awards celebrated the excellence of high school theater and our many talented students. Winners will represent the state of Illinois at the National Jimmy Awards later this spring and summer. Congratulations to John White on this incredible nomination, and to the Mattia Valley High School Theater for being a participating school.
Thank you. Additional board salutes by Ms. Grover.
The board salutes all the District 204 students who participated in the 72nd Illinois Youth in Government State Assembly. The assembly was held virtually this year, with our students having one of their best years ever, settling several records. Students throughout the state voted to elect officials in all three branches of the government. District 204 students from all three high schools were elected into office and awarded numerous other recognitions. Ayush Gupta from Waubonsie Valley was elected governor. Nikhil Venkat and Trinav Sata from Mattia Valley were elected Chief Justice and Lieutenant Governor respectively, and Calvin C. from Neuqua Valley was elected Secretary of State. Neuqua Valley had one of its best years with 10 bills passed and signed by the youth governor. Mattia Valley had 5 bills passed and signed into law. And Waubonsie Valley had an outstanding year with 9 bills passed into law. Congratulations to all the youth and government students and their sponsors.
Thank you. We have an additional board salute by Ms. Peel.
The board salutes 3 District 204 seniors who were recently named National Gold Medal winners at the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards by the Alliance for Young Artists and Writers. Katie Thompson from Waubonsie Valley, Emily Liu and Caitlin Zhao from Neuqua Valley each received the recognition. These students' gold medals qualify them to be considered for a $10,000 scholarship, which will be awarded later this spring. Congratulations, Katie, Emily, and Caitlin, and good luck.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Student Representative Report by Emily Shah from Waubonsie Valley. She is absent, so filling in for her place is Nitya Reedy.
Good evening.
You've got the floor.
Good evening. My name is Nitya Reddy, and I will be giving you the Student Representative Report for tonight. Unfortunately, Emily was unable to make it, so I will be giving the report in her place. Today, Waubonsie welcomes students selecting in-person learning back for periods 1
Can you
through
pull
8.
the microphone a little bit closer to you? Yeah.
Waubonsie welcomes students selecting in-person learning back for periods 1 through 8 for the first time since early March. Our students and staff have done an amazing job of being flexible and safe during this uncertain time. A credit to their perseverance and adaptability. Juniors will be taking the SAT tomorrow, April 13th. This will be the second SAT we have offered as a school, as we offered one to all seniors in the fall. This past weekend, our Model UN team competed in the Glenbard South High School Model UN Conference. There were over 500 high school delegates, and our delegation walked away with 11 top awards, including Outstanding Performance and Honorable Recognition for 7 members. Our Senior Celebration Committee has been hosting many senior events. Last night, there were over 60 students who participated in a motivational message from Kevin Bracey. On April 17th, the Senior Celebration parents will be hosting a tie-dye event. Senior Katie Thompson was recently recognized as National Gold Medalist for Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. Her 2D drawing was recognized as one of the top in the nation. WV has 2 robotic students that have advanced to state. Jonah Elias and Shubham Shah qualified and competed at the April 4th competition. Last week, we began our last batch of athletics at the Original Valley under the new IHSA format. This season is considered the summer season. With the addition of these final 11 sports, we are currently running 14 athletic programs at the same time. This creates a lot of activity at the school, but it sure is a welcome sight. During the winter season, our boys swim team were DuPage Valley Conference champions, and senior Sonali Manahoran took 5th place singles during the IHSA Badminton State Championship. This week, our summer sports will begin their competition, while boys soccer ends on Saturday the 17th, followed by girls volleyball and football ending on the 24th of April. We are excited to watch our student athletes compete and are thankful for the opportunities. Both our athletes and coaches have done a tremendous job working together to make this school year a success. On a sad note, Waubonsie Valley remembered the career of John Will Burke this past week. Mr. Burke had taught orchestra at Waubonsie for the past 20 years and had spent 23 years in the district. He passed away unexpectedly over spring break. Mr. Burke has 3 children who graduated or will graduate from Waubonsie, and his wife Andrea Burke teaches music education at Georgetown Elementary. He is the embodiment of a community educator. We recognize his passion and love for teaching this past week. That is all for the Waubonsie Board Report. Thank you for your time, and as always, go Warriors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And make sure Emily gives you some favors, please. Next on the agenda is public comment for non-agenda items. If you are here to speak to an agenda item, that comment will be taken immediately prior to that item. 30 minutes is allowed for public comment, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups. And as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. The first speaker is Karen Zatz. Please take the microphone. See, I can't see over there. I've got a blind spot. Thank you, Karen.
Good evening. I'm coming to speak here tonight as the parent of 3 children in the district and as the founder of the 2,000+ member Facebook remote and online parent support group, not in any other role. For millennia, our values of society, regardless of faith, have brought us to the moments where we realize that the only way to support one another is to find ways to stand together. I ask each of us, what are we doing as parents to build each other up? What are we doing to support families in our district? What are we doing to promote unity? And I mean this quite literally as what are we doing together to support each other? How do we hope to build a society for our children based on the potential of their growth if we focus our energies on what we are not? If we start groups focused on who we are not? Whether your kids remain in remote learning or have returned to 5-day instruction, no matter who you voted for or if you did not vote at all, whether your kids are athletes or artists, whether they love to learn or hate to study, whether they're just starting in our preschool or finishing their senior year, should we as parents be looking to divide them? I don't understand the anger directed at those who we disagree with. As adults, we should be able to model civil discourse without hurling names or insults. We owe our children the duty to build each other up, to support our community in difficult circumstances, to give each other the benefit of the doubt, to listen and to learn, to thank those who serve, and when we disagree, to do so respectfully. While the modality of instruction may remain separate for a while between our remote and our in-person learners, we don't believe this is a forever situation. The goal is and has always been to return all students to in-person learning. I urge the district to continue to serve each group equitably and to make plans for the fall that offer meaningful remote options for children and families who will need this option. If you're interested in respectfully continuing this conversation, I welcome folks to join us on Facebook. COVID may have separated us into our homes, physical and metaphorical bunkers, but now as we start to emerge and return, we must focus on ways to bring our community back together. As Gandhi said, a coward is incapable of exhibiting love. It's the prerogative of the brave. Be brave.
Thank you. The next speaker tonight is Chuck Mayer.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for this opportunity to get up here and speak. I've been in your shoes where you've had to create policy in difficult situations. The situation that you're in right now has never been felt in this country in our lifetimes. But I think we have a huge problem here in the way policies have been put out there and the impacts it's having on our children. For instance, my daughter today found out that she was sitting within 3 feet of someone last Thursday. She is, as a senior over at Neuqua Valley, a 4-year theater person, 4 years in their jazz band. In fact, I think she was one of 2 freshmen that actually made it freshman year. She's not going to be able to participate in senior spectacular because someone was within 6 feet. The nurse actually went and measured for me today where her chair was compared to this other person, because if it was at 6 feet, she would be okay. But because it's under 6 feet, now I'm being told that she can't participate. Now, the problem you guys face is that there is a huge discrepancy between what the state's saying, what the federal people are saying, and in fact, in the new policy that was put out by ISBE, it says districts and schools should evaluate the burden that placing a person in paced learning with social distancing less than 6 feet employs. I'm sure you considered that burden. I'm sure you considered all the facts that were coming at you, and especially the people that came and talked to you about it, how important it was to get their kids to school. In fact, I decided to come out of semi-retirement to help teach because you guys are having problems getting good substitute teachers. I've been in the classroom. I know what Room and Zoom does. I know the benefit of helping a child over his shoulder in math, because when he's on screen, he can't see the same process. More importantly, we can't see what they're processing. But the mental health volleyball that's going on now is creating massive problems. You had 6 weeks to leave these kids at 6 feet. You have put in place a situation where kids are being left out of opportunities because they are within that 6 feet parameter. I'm not sure what we can do for my daughter, but I think you need to reconsider how we're going forward in the last 6 weeks of this school. Because if we would have left it at 6 feet, she would be participating in everything this week. She has her final play next week. They are in tech practice this week. I don't know, however, if any of you have ever participated in a show like that, but the impact that that has is almost more important than when I played college basketball, because they have to depend on each other. They can't go on for the next group because you got somebody missing here, and she's not sick. And in fact, today, I got a negative result on a COVID test that we had her take over the weekend. Why is that not in your policy? Why are you not looking at ways to get kids in school and not keep them out?
Thank you, Chuck. Can you wrap it up shortly?
Yeah, I will wrap it up in saying that according to ISBE, this is not a mandatory quarantine. It's voluntary. And that the Department of Health has final say-so on who should be quarantined. I will be contacting the Department of Health to make sure that we're doing the right things. And I think that if we go in and have our kids tested a couple times and they come back negative, 14 days is too long. 10 is what the new requirement is. So why the school is going beyond that, I'm not sure. So please take a look at that. I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for your service here to this community. I know what it means to go through what you're going through. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Asafani Obed.
Hi, my name is Asafani Obed Horton. Dr. Talley, we're going to work on that pronunciation.
You even spelled it out for me here, and I still butchered it. I
Asafani.
apologize. I'll get it by the third next meeting.
Awesome.
I apologize.
I'm a parent of 4 children in this district. And as I was sitting here waiting for the meeting to begin, I received a text message that read, "He didn't make it." A couple weeks ago, my friend's father was admitted to the hospital with COVID. He was put on a ventilator. Today, he passed away. I didn't intend on starting my speech this way, but this is my life and my reality, and COVID-19 is real. I'm actually here today because I want to thank the board, teachers, staff, and District 204 for all the work you have done during this pandemic. Has everything been perfect? Absolutely not. This past year has challenged me in ways that I couldn't have imagined. We've all had to adapt. I've always admired the work that teachers do. I was amazed at the presentation my kindergartner's teacher put together during her last conference. The teachers and staff at Fisher have been amazing. I've received emails and text messages to help support my students during this transition. I felt that my students' safety and learning is of the utmost importance in this district. And I would just like to say, our teachers and staff deserve to be recognized for showing up each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. We now come to the point in the agenda where the president needs to make a decision. The acting president. I have 9 slips for speakers on STEM school topics. The STEM school discussion is at the end of the agenda. Do the speakers want to speak now? We have some students in the audience. Or do the board members want to shift the agenda around to provide for STEM school to be discussed first on the discussion list?
We can discuss them first.
Do we have some other concerns?
Mindful of the fact that our speaker for the enrollment has a flight to catch.
Okay, that's another decision. So we can move it up from in front of summer learning. Any issues with that? Does that seem appropriate to the other board members? Do any public speakers on STEM want to go now or wait until the issue comes up before on the agenda to speak? You're welcome to do so now if you want. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So we have the superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Mr. Krubis. Members of the Board of Education and the Indian Prairie community. I will start my comments with sad news, as mentioned by our student representative. We were all very saddened to hear of the untimely passing of Mr. John Burke, who was a music teacher and orchestra director at Waubonsie Valley High School. He passed away on Thursday, April 1st. He was a respected educator, a gifted musician, and a caring individual. We send our condolences to his family, and may they know how much he meant to the students and staff of Indian Prairie. On March 26, we were able to hold a community vaccination event at Neuqua Valley High School, where we vaccinated more than 1,100 people ages 16 to 90. Due to collaboration with Dr. Henry, Pharmacy District Manager for Jewel Osco and Will County, we were able to offer the COVID-19 vaccine to community members who fell within groups 1A, 1B, and those who have health issues. I want to thank Dr. Lance Fuhrer, principal of Neuqua Valley, for ensuring that the space we needed in the building was available. I want to thank him for finding students who could help us direct the community when they entered the school. I also want to thank Ms. Linda Herwald, our senior nurse, and her nurses for the work they did during that day-long event. And Dr. Henry and his pharmacists are to be thanked too for giving people the injections. We are proud that we were able to hold this event for our community. We have started additional days of instruction in our schools at various levels. At the high school level, they were able to have the students back from Monday to Friday for the past couple of weeks, and it's moving along very well. I've been able to visit the schools to see the students engaging with their teachers. We continue to ensure that our remote students are able to engage with their teachers in robust ways. Our elementary students are starting their 9 to 3 schedule this week, tomorrow in fact. I want to thank all the staff at the elementary levels for the way in which they have embraced this change. I also want to thank the central office staff who served as the Geek Squad, going to all the schools to support the teachers as they prepared for the concurrent learning, or the Zooming and Rooming as we call it. We have purchased a lot of equipment, installed the equipment, and provided guidance to our staff in how to use this new materials. We are trying to ensure that both remote learners and in-person learners have a positive experience. The teachers have created peer support groups within schools and across schools. The positive energy has been wonderful to see. Ask, Connect, and Engage, or ACE time, will begin tomorrow with teachers at the primary and intermediate levels. Information has gone home to families by principals. Please check with your principal if you did not receive such information. This is a resource for our remote learners, but will also be open to others as well. Our ability to meet the needs of our elementary students who are coming in 9 to 3 could not be done without the support of our STEPS program, who are helping us with some logistical work. Students from that program are helping us at various schools to include Longwood, Georgetown, Patterson, Peterson, Collishaw, Brookdale, Bilta, and Gombert. They're setting up furniture, spot cleaning floors, helping with the setup of tents and other work. They are doing this work in addition to helping us with creating the surveillance testing kits. We are very happy with the partnership with the STEPS program in making this happen. I have to also thank our facilities department, led by Mr. Todd DePaul, and the work that was done to ensure that our schools are ready for the arrival of students. Tents were put up in place, furniture was moved, ordered, and put in place, as well as other logistical work. Today at Brookdale, they christened their tent by having a picnic lunch for staff. I asked that the staff, are they ready for tomorrow? And they all excitedly said that they were. Since we started our voluntary surveillance testing of staff and students, we have had only 3 people who have had positive results out of more than 11,000 surveillance tests. We continue to feel confident that our schools are safe. We originally asked the Board of Ed for approval to spend up to $1.5 million for the testing. We have only spent $109,000 as of tonight. As I stated at the last board meeting, we will be ending this program at the end of April. I have been informed by our nurses about inappropriate and somewhat abusive language that nurses are receiving when they contact Trace. Our nurses are doing the work required to keep our community healthy and safe. I understand that some may not like the questions that are being asked, but our nurses are agents for the health department doing what's need to be done when there is a positive case in the schools. I made mention of this issue several months ago, and it's disappointing that I have to bring it up again. Civility is what is being asked for us as the nurses do their job that they are required to do in this pandemic. I do want to remind all families that with a reduction of social distance spaces, as we have mentioned in the past, that this is happening in some of our classes from 6 feet to 3 feet, there is greater chance for more students having to quarantine if there is a positive case in the school. That does not mean others will be positive, but as part of contact tracing, those around the person who is positive will need to quarantine. This is why the self-certification is so important. I implore you to not send your children to school if there is a hint of the child being positive. We are trying to ensure that our students are able to be in school for those who want to be there. The state has not changed protocols for contact tracing, even though the state has changed social distancing requirements. I am very happy to announce that Indian Prairie School District has been recognized as one of the nation's best communities for music education. This will be the 10th time Indian Prairie has received the recognition from the National Association of Music Merchants. Recipients were selected using an extensive annual survey that gauges funding, participation, opportunity, standards, community, facilities, and other factors that affect access to comprehensive music education. This year's application survey asked a series of questions about how our district is offering music to our students during the pandemic. The ongoing efforts of our district to provide meaningful and safe music making opportunities for students during the pandemic were a contributing factor in our designation as the best communities for music education. I am very proud of this accomplishment and salute all of our music educators in the district and Mr. Grant Saar, our Director of Elective Curriculum, for all of their hard work to make music education so stellar in our school district. And finally, before turning the meeting back, I would like the board to act on my recommendation for the new principal of Mary Young Elementary School, Ms. Erin Rodriguez, who is here tonight. Ms. Rodriguez is currently a student service coordinator at May Watts Elementary School. She has served as an interventionist at Gombert and was also a classroom teacher at Gombert. More than 70 people applied for the position, and Ms. Rodriguez rose to the top. She demonstrated a very strong desire to establish relationships with the community at Young and a desire to examine all work through an equity lens. At this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Karubas.
Is there a motion?
Motion, the Board of Education approve Erin Rodriguez as the principal at Nancy Young Elementary as presented.
Second.
Second by Lori Donahue. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jeannie, will you call the roll?
Yes.
Ms. Donahue,
Aye.
Ms. Grover,
Yes.
Ms. Deming,
Aye.
Mr. Karubas,
Yes.
Mr. Razak,
Aye.
Ms. Peel,
Aye.
Motion passes. Ms. Rodriguez, do you want to say a few words? No?
Can she stand?
You stand to be recognized? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Hard to see her on that.
Yeah. Welcome to the district. Welcome to the new role in the district. I apologize. Next item on the agenda is approval of consent agenda items E through K. Can I have a motion?
I make a move to
approve consent agenda items E through K as presented.
Second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Jeannie, can I have a roll?
Ms. Deming,
Aye.
Ms. Donahue,
Aye.
Mr. Karubis,
Yes.
Mr. Razak,
Aye.
Ms. Grover,
Yes.
Ms. Peel,
Aye.
and Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of enrollment and projection trends analysis process. We have a number of speakers. Welcome.
Good evening, board members. I'm honored to be here with Mr. Rob Schwartz from RSP and Associates. As you know, Rob's been involved with the district for a number of years. He performed an enrollment analysis in 2012, another enrollment analysis in 2017. He's been a great resource in our study to look at our student generation tables and working with the cities of Aurora and Naperville. We spent a great deal of time over the last year Zooming and meeting with representatives of both cities. Rob has now completed another enrollment analysis. It's a 5-year projection that talks about where the district is heading with its student generations and enrollment. He's got a presentation, and he'll talk about where we're going to go from here as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rob.
Great. Good evening, board and superintendents. It's great to be here in person. I'm glad that we have this opportunity to have this experience. I'm sure many of you, when you saw the presentation, you said, how in the world can we cover this within 30 minutes? Because there's so many slides. Well, those of you who know and remember back when we did the generation yield rate analysis, we provide a lot of visuals, a lot of context for you to go back to, but I may not speak to each slide. So if that was your expectation, that's not going to happen. What we will focus on is really these 4 areas that you see on this slide. We're going to talk a little bit about your enrollments, so you have some context of what that means. We'll talk a little bit about developments, and some of that will kind of lead into, if you want to know more, go to the yield rate study that we did. We'll then talk about the enrollment projections, and then we'll talk about the moving forward. What are our next steps? How do we move forward with some of the objectives that we think need to happen over the next year? So that's our agenda. Those that are viewing this, RSP, I'm the owner of the company. We've been working for school districts exclusively for about 18 years through the Midwest. As Jay alluded to, a lot of work that we've done here in your district, and we're honored to have been a part of a lot of the analysis that I think what we're hearing from the cities is really cutting edge with how we look at things with like generation yield rates. That said, we can't do what we have been able to accomplish for your district without the bottom part of this slide. We've gotten a lot of data from the school district, from the villages, the cities, the county, census data and whatnot, and without those data sets, we couldn't put together the analysis that we're presenting to you tonight. So I want to really acknowledge their and those specific entities, what they've been able to do in our conversations. So a little bit about enrollment. If we start at this 100,000-foot view, I want to capture what this means with enrollment, capacity, and developments. So we're forecasting that your enrollment will decrease by about 1,000 students over the next 5 years. I'm going to give you information. I'll stop on specific slides why we think that's going to happen. You can see the individual breakdown by the grade levels of elementary, middle school, and high school where those changes occur. When we look at capacity, we've captured capacity 2 different ways. Those buildings that are going to be over 95% and those buildings that are going to be less than 75%. What we want you to capture from this information is that there's an imbalance of your enrollment throughout the district in its specific buildings. Some are too full, others are not as fully utilized as they could be. And again, you can see the breakdown at the elementary school, middle school, and high school. We get to development, most of our development is going to be in the area of infill, and it's going to be a lot more multifamily type developments that could range from garden style apartments to townhomes, and that's probably the whole point of why we did the yield rate study that we completed, and I believe we've had the first read with the city of Naperville. So that's kind of the 100,000 foot view. The next few slides will give you some visuals of your district if you're not familiar. This one's with the city or village limits, then what the existing elementary attendance areas are, the middle school attendance areas, the high school attendance areas, and then the crux of how RSP has been able to do the work that we do is with these planning areas. And we have over 550 unique planning areas where we're analyzing what happens with enrollment, development, and demographics. And so it's clued in on, is it single family, is it multifamily, is it twin homes, duplexes. If we zoom into an area here where I believe it's around Still Middle School, if I'm looking at Still Middle School, what you're able to see here is what those planning areas mean to our analysis. The dots represent students in the 2021 school year. There's a green line that represents the planning areas. You can see the aerial background. This is the cornerstone of how all the data plays with itself. It is a statistical model, and so I won't go into all the details of this model, or we would be here for another hour. But really what you need to know is that all of those 550 planning areas have something uniquely happening to them each and every year based on different data analysis that's occurring in our assessments. This page here will illustrate some, but not limited to, the sources that we look at for your analysis. I do want to spend a moment on the live birth data. This is an important slide because when we look at the column, which is the second column, number of live births, you can see back in 2007 we had over 11,600 live births in DuPage County. And you can see when we go down to 2018, it's about 10,300. So we've had fewer live births occurring. As we move to the right to the column that says school year and the number of kindergartners, that represents the number of kindergartners we had 5 years later. So this is one way in which we can look at what could potentially happen with future kindergarten students 5 years later. And so you can see the last three rows where there's a light blue font for 21-22 through 23-24. We've just given you an idea that if the census live birth data plays out the way in which it has the previous 3 years, this potentially could be the number of kindergartners that we see in each of the next 3 school years. We do the same thing with Will County. So not to talk just about DuPage, but we also did it for Will County. We have enrollment by grade. What I really want to suggest to you, most of your decrease is what you see on this table. When we look at the senior class and we compare it to the incoming kindergarten class, we naturally are seeing fewer kindergarten students than those students that are graduating. So if I look at 2019-20, come over to that senior 12th graders, there's 2,236 last year, or 2 years ago. And then this last year, we had 1,500 kindergartners. So you can see we have a natural decrease. So we have to make that up in another way. And so when we look at that same data, this is cohort change. What has enrollment done as a first grader becomes a second grader, or a seventh grader becomes an eighth grader? This captures each of those years, what that change has been. We also show you some different information about in-migration and out-migration. All I want to highlight here is on the maps, you're going to see dots. The dots represent where the student was as represented for the type of information that's being displayed, in this case, new students, so in-migration. If we zoomed in tighter, you would see in a household we might have an elementary and a middle school student. at that same address, but you're just going to see one dot at the extent this map is. What I wanted you to take from this is the bullet points. You can see that we had similar number of new students this school year as we did last school year. This is something that's a little bit different than a lot of the districts we've been working with the impact of COVID. So you've held the number of new students. What we've seen with the students that are no longer receiving services here in the 2021 school year, it's up from what it was last year, but it's still lower than what it was 2 years ago. So again, something is different happening in your district than me just saying, hey, COVID had this impact on the number of new students or students that left your district. When we look at this particular map, we're trying to understand with those 550 planning areas, where have we seen change? Has it increased? Has it decreased? Green is a decrease, orange is an increase. The darker the orange, the greater the increase. The darker the green, the greater the decrease. So this is just a snapshot. We have some videos when we get to the next steps that we'll be able to show what that looks like over time. What you need to understand is that each of these planning areas change each year. One year it may be decreasing, and the next year it may be increasing. That's the value of a statistical model in forecasting your enrollments. Another way of looking at the student data is reflected in this map. It's a density map. The red areas represent where we have the greatest number of students. So you can see there's different pockets throughout your district, but the greater amount of density is clearly on the north side of the district. I won't read all of these different bullet points other than the last one, this pig and the snake effect. As we see larger grades graduate and smaller grades come in, we naturally should have a smaller enrollment. There's other things that are happening with demographics that are changing that, and as we move into the projections, we'll talk a little more to that extent. So a little bit about development. We always like to have some baseline data. This visual provides you the census population estimate, which is the green line, and that's been increasing where we have more than 800 new people within your school district boundary each year. The blue line represents the building activity, certificate of occupancies, different than building permits. This is when we can actually have people move into those units. And you can see over the last 2 years, it's been about 200 units, but we've had years where it's been over 1,000 units. We're becoming a very mature district where those infill development opportunities are what we've tried to highlight in our development section, where we potentially might see new kids in these new emerging developments. The red line represents the enrollment change. And you can see with this pig and the snake effect, we have fewer students each year based on the number of students in this cohort pyramid. Another way that we look at this data, and I think this is quite fascinating if we were to really isolate this by individual buildings. I'm going to focus on the district K-12 row, which is the bottom row of this table. When we go back in time for single-family yield rates, this helps identify what we've been seeing for the number of kids for every 100 units that fit the category of single-family. And so you can see that if we go back to 2007, quite a bit more students per unit than what we are seeing in 2020. This gets at some of the things that Jay and I have spoke about a lot, is how quickly does the existing housing inventory turn over? So it's really exciting to talk about new developments, but in your district, we have more inventory that's actually in the ground, active with households. And so how quickly we see some of that inventory turn over to allow new families to move in, to then also have children that go through your system, is really what we're trying to analyze in our analysis. So when do we see a regreening effect? When we look at multifamily developments, which is everything other than single family, quite a bit less than what we see with single family, but more than what we've seen in previous years, thus setting in motion that generation yield rate study that, again, I mentioned the city of Naperville has already had their first read. Significantly more kids are coming from some of the multifamily developments than we've ever had in years past. We look at home values, so you can go back and look at this map. The least affordable are going to be the orange and red areas. Again, this is all to the beholder's eye on what they think affordable is, right? So some of the areas that are blue, those would be the most affordable in the district. We do track where units are being built. I've already mentioned that in the previous slide. The dot clusters will indicate where those developments are. From the information that we gleaned from the cities, what we knew with the available infrastructure, infill projects, we've highlighted 2 different categories on this map. Green, where we're seeing existing development, so like Wagner Farms. Yellow, where we may see new development within the next 5 years. And most of that, if you note, is around the mall. We did provide some different analysis by city that is important in realizing where we see units, the type of units, and the number of students that come from each of those type of units. I'm going to explain this slide, and this will help you understand each of the other slides. It's Aurora because it's alphabetical. So table 1 is showing you with the orange bar the number of units each year that were available. The blue line represents the number of students that lived in those single-family developments. And you can see that there were more students when we go back to 2010 than there are here in 2020, but the inventory is greater than it was in 2010. When we go to table 2, that is the multifamily development, so everything that's not single family, so that's mobile homes, duplexes, apartments. We can see that from 2015 to 2016, there was an increase in that activity. We saw a bump in students, and we've kind of plateaued in the number of students that are in those type of developments. We've had a slight decrease in this current school year. Table 3 will be the aggregate of both table 1 and 2. Table 4 gets into the type of housing inventory, and you can see we have a greater share of multifamily development. Again, this is within the Indian Prairie 204 boundaries. We have about 54% multifamily and about 46% single family. So you'll see that breakdown for Naperville. We also provided what we are anticipating with developments in this table, providing you a current total and a 5-year total. This can change. We have regular meetings with the city. Jay and his team, and I know he's on the sunrise or sunset of his time here, but we're working on how that gets turned over, whereas those developments come online with the city, we can have conversations. Does that lead to future students, and are they elementary students, are they middle school students, high school students, and so on? So again, this is just to give you an understanding of how that relates back to that statistical model. Again, I won't read each of these bullet points. The generation yield rate analysis is what I really recommend you look at. There's a lot of really cool visuals where you can see what has specifically been happening to different type of developments, why we could definitively say and present to the city for changes in their ordinances on why we're seeing more kids in those developments, and we are concerned about what that might mean for the impact on capacity in any of your buildings. So that kind of gets us into the enrollment projections. So we're showing you a visual here that shows the past, current, and then what the future might look like. This is broken down with elementary being the red for past and current, and pink being what we're forecasting over the next 5 years. The blue is the middle school grades, light blue for what we're forecasting happens over the next 5 years. Green is the high school, and the light green is, again, what we're projecting over the next 5 years. The purple line is the aggregate of all 3 of those. So when we look at this visual, we can see we're at a district of almost 26,000 of headcount students that are in the buildings, and we show you going down to about 25,000 students in 25-26. I do want to spend a little more of my time on what you see in the next few pages because it's packed with a lot of information. This slide you'll want to refer back to understand everything that we've put on the next few slides. So on the left-hand side in this table, what you're going to see is each of the buildings are listed and what grades are being served. As we move to the right, you'll see the current capacity, and this is an updated capacity that we worked on with administration to get at what I would say is a functional capacity in each of those buildings. As we move to the right, for the last 3 school years, we show the enrollment 3 different ways. The middle row in each building is going to be, did the student actually reside in that attendance area? The bottom row, which is the blue font, is based on the student data, the number of students that actually attended in that given school year. The top row is a subset of reside, called reside/attend. Did they actually reside and attend that building? Well, for the preschool program, preschool building, well, all of those kids are going to be reside, attend, and reside/attend. Where you see the differences is when we get down to the individual elementary, middle school, and high school buildings. We show you this really so you understand that there's different programs in many of these buildings, and those different programs attract students that may not be in those facilities. There's also a piece that we're working on with administration about how students may be moving around to other buildings based on district policies of how they can do that. That's something that comes in the next steps. So this kind of gives you that flow of kids. Are they residing? Where are they attending? What does that mean? As we move to the right, we show you the enrollment 2 different ways. One based on if they reside and actually go to that building and attend, using this data that we have from the last 3 school years, what potentially could be the number of students that are sitting in seats in each of those schools. Again, this can change based on the type of programs that we have in any one of these buildings. This is our best guess with knowing here's what it was in this most current school year. If that continues, this is what that might mean. The last 5 columns get at what does this mean with that capacity number in column 2, where we have shading, we have different shadings. So if it's orange, it's above 95% of the capacity. If it's that bluish gray, it's below 75% of that current capacity. Both are indicators of either too many or possibly too few kids. And so this starts to address, is there a way we can be creating our boundaries better to utilize our facilities, to have the right programs and so on. The left-hand side, you're going to see something that's oriented toward which feeder, which high school feeder that building is associated. And so because we have some broken feeders, what we tried to do as best as we could visually, so if you're colorblind, I apologize with some of these colors. They don't quite maybe make much sense, but a way in which you can see where we have split feeders and how that maybe is impacting what we see for the enrollment as they move from elementary to middle school and then on into the high schools. So you're going to see this same breakdown for each of the elementary buildings. And again, this has been given to you so you can go back and study this, and I know we have a future meeting workshop where we'll talk probably even more about what this implication might be. We do the same thing here with the middle schools. So you can see who's over capacity and who's probably maybe a little bit underutilized. And the same thing with the high schools. All right, I think I'm hitting my time right on. So if I look at the next steps, so part of this program that we've been working toward is completing this enrollment analysis. And what you see with each of these bullet points are some takeaways that factor into these next steps. And this is a boundary process. And so what we've established here is a process that's somewhat similar to what you've done in the past with looking at how do you change boundaries, but a little bit different. So I want to spend some time giving you some understanding of what this whole process means and how this relates to a time schedule. So here we are on April 12th. You're receiving the enrollment analysis and this particular process that we're starting upon. May 17th, there will be a board workshop where we talk about what some of these guiding principles and criteria need to be in establishing what the process will look like, what this committee will be addressing, and how we get to the end of this process in January of 2022 with a plan of what does this look like. I can honestly tell you I have no idea what it'll look like in January 2022, and I don't think any of your administrators can, and I'm sure you as a board, you have no idea either what it will look like. But that's the process that we have. So that's the blue is always the Board of Education. So you're starting out the process and you complete the process. We also have a committee that Jay may speak to of who would be potential committee members, where they will be working through all of this guiding principles, boundary criteria, the enrollment data, development data, to try to help create whatever this plan will look like for all of your buildings. So those are the green, and we have a series of 8 committee meetings that start in July and complete in December of this year. You see, we also have yellow, and that's RSP as the consultants. We did this initial enrollment analysis. That's what we're presenting to you tonight. We have another one that will come in after your fall housing report in October, and that will be able to assist us in seeing where the trends that we saw pre-COVID and during COVID, how did they hold out? Do we see more people moving to Naperville because of the ability to not have to travel elsewhere in the Chicago metro area, that they can just stay here and work from home? Does that impact what we see with the number of students, among many other different variables? So that will be a check to make sure that the plans that we're putting together statistically make sense. So that's the yellow, that's us. We're also facilitating each of these committee meetings to be able to work our way through whatever's on that agenda for each of those 8 meetings. You can see in November, we've slated off really November through December, there's going to be different public input opportunities. We've kind of kept that a little bit general, and the reason for that is in this COVID world, how many people can we get into an environment like this? Today, we can only have 50 people, right, in this particular auditorium. We do have at our disposal very many technology assets that would help us facilitate and get community feedback. That may be a direction that we have to go. We still may use that in concert with things that we can do in person. There may be smaller meetings that are related to at the PTO level. So again, we've kept this pretty general because we're not sure what that may look like a year from now. We're hopeful that we can have more interaction where it's in person because I think that tends to, in these situations, based on what we've done in the past, to be the best scenario for everybody. The way the process is also set up, you can see the committee does a good bulk of the work trying to understand what is happening in the district, what those objectives are, before we go out with a incomplete possibility, scenario, option, proposal, whatever we want to call it, in the November, December timeline. When we go out to the public, we want to have something that meets as best as possible the objectives you, the board, and administration provide in this process. Then you can see we come back after that public input, and right now we have one committee meeting. We may have to add a second one depending on what this all looks like, right? And then again, the timeline is try to have your first read of this in December of 2021. So a lot of work has to happen in this short period of time, but I think it's all doable. I'm not going to go over the appendix. We left a few things that were also some takeaways with items that we look at to understand what's happening in your district. But I'll open up for questions that you, the board, have.
Board members, as I see this process unfold, I see this being very much like Engage 204, where we have parent groups and a lot of our parent advocates come and attend these committee meetings and work through the data to make recommendations to the Board of Education about how we can handle some of our opportunities and challenges associated with our enrollment. Do we want to try and balance our schools evenly so that we have equitable space in the buildings, so that in one day in the future we're in a position, we have an opportunity to reduce class sizes, we're ready, we're teed up to do that. Do we want to consider, contiguous boundaries? Do we want to consider no split schools or split feeders? Do we want to consider how do we address our self-contained classrooms? Historically, our self-contained classrooms have always gone to the buildings that were least full, the ones with the smallest enrollment, and so they would bounce around depending upon what happened with enrollment. Maybe we give our self-contained classrooms a bite at the apple first, and we try and place those classrooms throughout the district so those families aren't driving, from the north end to the south end or the south end to the north end. Do we consider a weighted average daily attendance, much like evidence-based funding set us up for, where we know that, certain students have certain challenges or unique needs, and they take additional resources, financial resources. You've all been in this boardroom enough to know that, a school district that's very same is at 90%. Is different than a school district that's very diverse with diverse needs at 90%. The use of those two buildings, even though they're identical, the space is being used entirely differently. And those are all the things that we would want you to discuss in the next board meeting and when the committees get together that they talk about, so that we can figure out how to take care of some of these opportunities that may be ahead of us.
Great, great presentation. A lot of information there. I appreciate you getting through it as quickly as you did. There's a lot to digest for the board and the community on these issues. Let's hear some board comment, though. Mr. Rising?
So just some clarifying. Slide 26 and 27, when you talk about the yield rates, specifically that were coming out of single family and multifamily. So if we start at 26, if you talked about the bottom line there, right? So that was 0.69 coming from single family in 2020, right? If you scroll back to 2013, 0.83, and even go back all the way to 2007 at 0.93. I'm trying to get a sense of, because that's a 0.69 to 0.93 if you go back 13 years, right? I'm assuming that 0.31 or whatever it is, 0.32, I guess, or whatever it is. I can't do math right now. I'm assuming that even though it looks small, it yields quite a bit of students, right? And I think we see that with the multifamily going the opposite direction. So it was lower in 2007 and higher by 0.7 in 2020. So I'm just trying to get a sense of that. It may seem small, but it's calculating to a lot of students, right?
Correct. A better way to maybe visualize this is that's per units. So if we talk about for every 100 units, we're yielding in single family right now 69 K-12 students for every 100 units of single family.
Say that again?
In 2020, we're yielding 69 K through 12 students for every 100 single family units.
Okay.
When we look at multifamily, we're yielding about 31 K through 12 students for every 100 multifamily units. What's happening is in this time periods, one of our bullet points that we have from 2007 to 2020, we added about 1,500 single-family units. The potential to add more single-family units is significantly less than what we're seeing in your community for multifamily. In that same time period, we added almost 2,300 multifamily units. And when we go back to that development slide, the majority of the new units that we're thinking could come online over the next 5 years are going to be multifamily units. But if we drill down even deeper into the data, and that's where that yield rate study is so imperative to understanding some of the things that are happening in your district, we're seeing specific developments, most likely the newer multifamily developments, are yielding maybe even more than what we're seeing here as the district average. And that's why as we look through each of these attendance areas, like when I look at Graham, I think is one, or if I look at Gombert's, where we're yielding this year 53 K-12 students for every 100 multifamily units and 41. So it's a small number at a per unit, but it could be very big in the type of developments and specific developments.
Okay, so then that's what you were talking about then, as far as the number of students versus units generated on slide 31 and 32, correct? That's kind of where you were showing that table 3, how it summarizes the students and the number of units. So it's not necessarily a bad thing either way if you have a lot more units to students, because it looked like almost Naperville had more units to students than Aurora, if you're looking at table 3. I'm just trying to, and maybe I'm just digging too deep, because once I go down that rabbit hole, okay, we can forget about that. Jay, thanks for mentioning parameters and things that we would look at. You know, we would go down this. And I guess my last question is, you know, the last 7 years we had slight elementary attendance area tweaks. And where I'm going with my question is, you know, this is something we look at for a district-wide. I'm concerned how predictable those numbers are long-term, and why I say that, and I'll bring a specific example up, is 5 years ago, our Brooks attendance area, which is Stonebridge, had a huge turnover. You had a bunch of kids graduate and a bunch of young families move in. It was kind of a little bit of a weird anomaly that we really haven't seen, I don't think, in the district. At least we haven't seen that happen like in Tallgrass area or White Eagle area. But it happened in this Brooks area, and we had to move a lot of kids out of Brooks. And now we're looking at Brooks, that time later, they're under 75% capacity. So, you know, now granted, we did move kids out of there, right? But now they're at less capacity than I think we maybe even thought about 4 or 5 years ago. So that's where I go back to the predictability, because no board, no district wants to necessarily do boundaries. You know, I want to try to understand these numbers. Do we need to do something district-wide, or do we only need to do a few things in the north still? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around that too, right? But when I look at Bilta, and it's only got 250 so kids in there, yeah, it's significantly underutilized, right? So, I don't know if you wanted me to speak to that.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next board member.
Is that too much?
A little bit.
Okay.
Can I just say that one thing that's going to be important as we do this is taking into consideration the developments that we know are coming through our communication with both cities, that we're really going to have to, you know, increase that communication about the timeline for when they come on, because those are mostly multi-family developments. I'm sorry, Mr. Krubis.
Comments from Ms. Grover?
I just wanted to say thanks for all the details. And there's a lot of details, and sometimes you don't realize how the details are so important. Like I was looking at slide number 6. And I found this interesting because the elementary schools, if you look at 75% capacity, Fry is at 75%, Welch is at 75%, and they feed into Scullin, and so you would think, oh, Scullin is going to be 75%, but it's not. It's actually at 95%. So it's just, the details are so, when we have the committees, I think we have to look at everything, so it's really interesting. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Ms. Peel?
Well, I just want to thank Jay for bringing up opportunities, and I think for this future board, I hope you do look at it as an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity to look at the school district from a truly equity lens and start serving our students in the best way we can. And that, I think it'd be wiser to be brave on this end. And take this opportunity to make those spaces that are right for kids. And so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Deming?
Thank you so much. This is, I mean, so much detail, information. And I just wondered, I know we originally began looking, you know, before COVID, when we first began to recognize that we needed to look. Any type of reflection or impact with the change of the way people work and any impact on projections with that? With so much personnel staying, you know, working from home, did that change have any impact on what our projections look like? I just wondered.
Great question, and the simple answer is we didn't have any definitive data yet to say that with people staying at home rather than going into the office, did that, for instance, we've heard people say, since they're staying at home, does that mean we're going to have more babies 5 years later? Much like when the Chicago Cubs won the World Series, right? We haven't seen anything like that from hospitals. So as we try to look at some of the data points and what people think may have happened, things like as we see turnover of households, are we seeing it generate different type of households that maybe have school-age children, or maybe they're more likely to be secondary? We don't yet have any definitive variables, but what we have done in this initial forecast was made some assumptions that some of those things should definitely have a positive impact on what it means for your district. Other districts we work with, it may actually be a negative. So it was really more on how we tried to model, saying that there's some things that are different. We don't have definitive variables, but how would this maybe potentially play out in this district?
Okay, thank you. Great information. Thank you so much for providing, and lots of work for us.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue?
So on the yield, the student yields that are in this presentation, are they consistent with what we're using right now with the city of Naperville?
They're consistent with the ones that we're going through the process and having adopted with the city of Naperville.
Okay, okay. And the boundary committee, who's going to be on, or how is that getting formed?
The boundary committee will be made up of multiple stakeholders, and determining who will be on it. We will look at that down the road, but it will be made up of various people from both the school district, the community, and engaging as many people as we can from different perspectives.
That's good. Yeah, because there is a lot here, and I thank everyone for all of this comprehensive set of material. I know it's a difficult process, and it would be interesting to share some of the criteria that was used in the past when we did boundary realignment, or experience that you have with other districts on what variables were looked at for ultimately determining how to move students around to the different schools. So what are the kinds of criteria that were used would be a good list to start with so we could look at.
I can provide that for you. I've got files.
But even outside our district, like if there's experience that you have through RSP with different districts that have looked at some creative criteria, I'd be interested in seeing what that is.
And we'll talk about that on May 17th.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I'm sure some people that are not going to be here to live through this will be very happy to not experience the trauma that goes on with.
I might watch on TV.
So,
Once was enough.
See. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Razak, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you, and I want to thank RSP and Shea for all the work that they have done. Clearly, time to look at this. I was impressed with the level of detail, and it's clearly necessary. For me, I'm interested over time in terms of mitigation I wonder where our house sales are going to be, but they seem to be stable over time, and we're not getting a lot of new students, in fact, losing them. But the level of detail is really important, and I hope the community is reassured that they're going to be part of this process, because it's really important that they are. So I just want to thank everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I do think that this is the most important slide for us to consider tonight. I think we need to reach consensus generally that this is a process that we want to go down and engage. We do have another meeting where we can consider some of the options. But if we want to provide direction that we want to have a different process, or we want to have additional meetings, or we don't want to go down this path at all, we need to reach consensus on this slide 45. Based on the recommendation, based upon the prior history that we have with doing boundary changes, I see the need for it. Looking at the numbers and the discrepancies, I don't understand why we haven't had more complaints about some of the capacity issues as of recently. But at least this year we have a reason why we don't. But there hasn't been a lot of history of the complaints. But sometimes we need to act as a district to be forward-thinking and consider the instruction that is being done in the buildings. So this is a process generally that I can support, and I look forward to additional information on some of the particulars. So if anybody has any disagreement with this process, let's think about it and raise it up at the next meeting. Okay? Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Mr. Karubis,
Yep.
can I ask each board member to speak more into the microphone? I'm having, at times, difficulty hearing everyone, please.
Is there any culprit more than others?
No, it's...
Okay, we will.
I can
Thank
hear
you.
whatever Mr. Rising's doing, he's doing very well.
Mr. Rising sitting right next to you.
I'm like 3 feet from you, Mike. That's why.
Thank you. We will try to be more cognizant of that. The next item on the agenda with the change is the STEM school. Before we move on to that agenda, we're going to have public comment. Everybody here heard me read the rules before? They apply now. Our first speaker tonight for public comment on the STEM school is Robert Shantz.
Dear Dr. Talley, dear board members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. 3 weeks ago, I asked for more information about what's going on with the STEM school. Unfortunately, I received nothing, neither after I sent an email to Dr. Talley, nor after I contacted Mr. Rising, and I find that is unacceptable and disappointing. The potential reasons for withdrawal. So we have been speculating based on the information we got from different districts and from data available. Unfortunately, that was the thing we had to do. And we came up with a few. One, could be too expensive. According to different districts, the cost to the district is about $500,000. For 50 students, makes $10,000 per kid. And from public records, the average student cost per is $12,000, so that's more. And so that could be a reason. Second, there are no benefits. Well, it's not true. The school has exemplary performance. That there are no benefits to the district is the district's fault, because they didn't extract any, didn't have any plan. Alternatives, there are none. District 131, they handed out candy canes to their kids by saying, well, everybody like from our district gets a place in their magnet academy when they get pulled out of the STEM school, which is like a big slap in our face because we don't have that. So what are our kids going to do? Next one, it could put the district to shame that they didn't utilize it and reap the benefits. So some egos could be hurt, which I could understand, but it would show a very weak character. That there are naysayers within the different partners or the governing board. Well, but we aren't sheep who follow just because somebody is against something, that we all go like, oh, in the sense of like following along, we're just going to all pull out. So that couldn't be a reason either. One district is pulling out. Well, according to public information, it's 2 districts that are required to be in the school from the current 4, and it would still be viable. Cost per student doesn't go up, so it's still not an argument. 7, we heard comments from the AU presidents that she would talk if there was more money offered to her. But, well, reminder of her commitment that she made. She is part of this as well. So that can't be an argument either. Some board members at District 131 said, well, the energy seemed out after the chair leader resigned. Well, excuse me? Like any company that loses their CEO who resigns doesn't just like close business because the energy is out. That's not an argument. The energy for our kids should never run out. Like it should always be the top priority, and I think it is. So I still don't understand it. So what's the argument? Like every time somebody like brings up an argument and we bring up a counter argument, there seems to be a new argument why it's against the school, without that having been shared. And again, not from this district because we didn't have any sharing of any potential.
Your 3 minutes is up. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm looking forward to be enlightened what your argument is for pulling out, what alternatives you present, and I hope you still decide in the best of our kids and keep the STEM school open. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Paul Shans. Might just be able to tilt the microphone down. You got it.
Okay. Dr. Talley, what is your plan for me and students like me? What is there in place to support me in my learning needs if the STEM school closes down? District 131 recognizes the special learning need and value of the STEM school and promises every student who currently attends STEM to attend the magnet school in case STEM closes. What does 204 offer to those students? Yes, we children are resilient, but we think we have been asked too much already during the past year. We can only take so much before we break. We are children after all, and we rely on grown-ups and leaders like you to provide for us and make sure our needs are met. Pushing the responsibility back to us kids is too heavy of a burden to carry. Please, Dr. Telly, I'm asking you and the board to see us, to recognize the value in the STEM school, to find a way to make the teaching model even more accessible to other students. As it was promised, I am relying on your support, on your eyes to see me and students like me. I have to rely on your ears to hear and on your position and voice to speak up for me and students like me. After all, I am only 12 years old, and what you are asking of us students is unreasonable, and it is hurting us. Have you spent some time to sit down at one of the lessons and see how well we learn and how effective the model is? Do you know we don't just do math and science, but we do well in art and music as well? Have you seen some of our projects? Have you spoken to our teachers or any of us students? I'm asking you to learn all the facts, to hear all the voices, and to not ignore or dismiss us because we are only children. Dr. Telly, board members, I am relying on you to be my voice, to advocate for me and students like me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ron Neal. You could just hold it if you.
Hi, my name is Aiden Neal, and I'm a fourth grader at the STEM school. When I heard about STEM possibly closing, I was confused and upset. I want to share 2 things I love about my school I hope will change your mind about closing it. The 2 things I love most about my school are the collaboration and more focus in science than my home district. I hope you decide to keep my school open. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're from District 101. Dr. Talley, I just wanted to say thanks. You actually called my wife Lynn back, and you guys had a great conversation. She said thank you. I just wanted to say that, again, that you guys asked these kids to make a commitment, and they did, and actually looked up the definition of commitment. And the commitment obligates you to do something, and that's all we're asking. We want to be involved, we want to help in any way possible. I think at least that the kids that are in STEM school now should be given that chance to at least finish. And if in that time we can't come up with something, then I can see the possibility of what you guys are looking to do. Have we talked to the sponsors, Waste Management, Caterpillar? These are huge, huge sponsors. Caterpillar is going to spend $10 million in Asia over the next 10 years on STEM schools. Did we ask them? Did they want to maybe put in some more money, if that's what this is about? Again, I go back to that commitment. You guys asked these kids to make it, they did. Keep your end of the commitment, at least for these kids, because not only did they make that commitment, you asked them to learn and think in a different way. They did that as well. You're asking them to do that again. It's pretty hard. I know it would be for me. I'm 46 years old. Please, don't pull out. We can make it work. Whatever we got to do, we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dylan Shields.
My name is Dylan Shields, and I'm a 5th grader at the STEM school. I remember when I took a tour of the school, and I knew within just a few minutes that I wanted to go there. When I walked by the classrooms, I saw kids working together on projects, not just sitting in desks listening to the teachers talk. I knew that I have to make some sacrifices to go to STEM. For example, there are no sports at STEM, and I love playing soccer. And I was asked to make a 6-year commitment to STEM, and at only 8 years old, that sounded like a really long time, 3/4 of my life. But once I got to STEM, I knew that I didn't want to leave. In fact, I wish I could go longer than 6 years, and all the sacrifices were definitely worth it. At STEM school, I feel like I get to use my mind more, and we work in groups, and we get to experience things hands-on. I feel challenged. And at my old school, I know I was still learning, but I got bored a lot. A lot of the time, you hear about kids who dread to go to school, but all the kids at STEM love it. My dad reminded me of a memory of him picking me up from school on the last day before winter break, and the first thing when I got in the car was, "I'm going to definitely miss school." I used to look forward to any break from school, but at STEM, I miss even the weekends. Isn't that how teachers and parents and you as the Board of Education want kids to feel? To be excited about learning? The STEM school should be a role model to make other schools better. If you want to learn from STEM, kids in the other district can be excited about learning too. If you get rid of the STEM school, it doesn't help anyone, but it hurts the quality, it hurts us, and it definitely hurts the quality of our district as a whole. When I learned the STEM school might be closing, I felt very, very sad. I missed the STEM school so much during the pandemic, and now that I might lose it for good, that would be devastating. And I've actually had nightmares about having to leave the STEM school. I was told that I would have 6 years at this school, and I've only had 3. Please give my classmates and me the full 6 years at this school. Getting to go to this school is one of the best things that has ever happened to me, and it's an incredible gift to our district. Losing the STEM school will be one of the worst things that will happen to me and to the district. I did not break my commitment to the STEM school. Please do not break your commitment to me and other STEM students. Thank you for listening to how I feel.
Thank you. Next speaker, Angela Shields.
I am the mother of the brave young man who just spoke to you. I and other STEM parents are now placed in the terrible position of having to warn our COVID-weary children that a change far more disruptive than remote learning is headed their way. As a counselor, I am aware of how this pandemic has greatly increased depression, anxiety, and suicide rates in youth. There simply could not be a worse time for STEM students to be facing the loss of their beloved school. I plead with you to listen with open minds and hearts tonight. When I sat in the parent information meeting and heard it stressed over and over again that students are expected to attend the school for 6 years, never in my wildest dreams did I consider that the school would not be in existence for that commitment to be fulfilled. We as parents have been told no logical reason that necessitates the school's closure. This district will spend less money sending students to the STEM school than to homeschools. If transportation is an issue, have parents provide transportation. Although a hardship for some, most parents would make any sacrifice to see this school continue. And finally, we continue to be told that district schools have not reaped enough benefits from the STEM school. Whose responsibility was that? I liken it to the school districts complaining they are still thirsty while the STEM school is a cool, refreshing bottle of water before them. An unopened bottle of water that they choose to discard instead of drink from. When you look at the outstanding test scores from a diverse, not gifted population, and the overwhelming satisfaction level of staff and students, the STEM school is the recipe that the districts ought to be trying to replicate in all other classrooms. You don't get rid of the model when you're trying to replicate something. You keep it and learn from it. And I believe that if you could keep learning from STEM and bring just 10% of its magic back to your schools, they would be transformed. AU Magazine describes the first director of the STEM school saying, "After a year of seeing students respond to the school's approach, Dr. Howerton became convinced that this is the way to learn." Additionally, during the pandemic, Chicago saw a 105% increase in households moving out of the city, many moving to nearby suburbs. Having the STEM school in our district is a drawing card for new taxpayers. Getting rid of the STEM school in no way makes our district more attractive. It only decreases the quality of our district education and gives taxpayers a reason to leave versus stay. Former House Minority Leader who helped pass legislation for the school stated regarding the STEM partnership, "There's nothing complicated about collaboration if you commit and stick to it." All the partners realize there's something magical here. Everyone is committed to making sure the collaboration continues, end quote. District 204, please earn the reputation of being a partner who commits and sticks to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, Maria Clements. I could stand up too.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity to speak with you again. It's just been a couple of short weeks since we were here last. And I was going to go through some facts and figures for you, which I did leave, or Janie was so grateful or so gracious to leave with you so that you could read those at your leisure. But I was inspired by the idea of redistricting, right, and changing the boundaries. And I thought, here we are, 7 years later in the STEM school, and originally it was supposed to be 204, 308, 131, and 129. 308 backed out. So Batavia, 101, stepped in. 308 said, well, we're going to build our own STEM program, so we're going to put that in place. They've had 7 years. They haven't done it yet. The rest of the districts who have said, well, we're not seeing the results that we wanted, have also had 7 years and haven't done it yet. 131 started their magnet school, right, the Fred Rogers Academy, and it's got a lot going for it. Has 450 students, 3rd through 8th grade. It's one of the best in the state. We're the biggest district, second largest district in the state here in 204, and we haven't done it yet. And we have so many gifted educators and so many gifted students and staff. And to move forward with withdrawing from the school when we don't have a concrete solution in place is a disservice. It's a disservice to the students. It's a disservice to the staff. It's a disservice to the future of our community. And I don't place the blame on 204 or 131 or 129 or 101. Maybe there's some opportunity that has been missed. And I hope that, as we were told by the STEM Governing Board, that you would use this time to evaluate how to improve, how to make it better, how to expand it so that it gives you the meaningful benefit for all of our students and all of our staff. You know, Aurora University promised that they were going to make another school back in 2017. They haven't done that yet. They also were supposed to be giving education and tuition to teachers to help improve their growth. They haven't done that yet. We want to do whatever we can as parents and as community members to see the STEM school continue to be successful. We're writing letters. We're reaching out to partners. If it's a money issue, let us help. If it's a transportation issue, tell us. If it's a, hey, somebody dropped the ball and we need somebody to bring it together, even if it's a volunteer, I volunteer. I will do what it takes to help our kids, all the other kids, succeed and get this back to our community, because we cannot innovate, we can't grow, we can't succeed without this direction. So I plead with all of you, and I know some of you won't be voting on this because you are not going to be on the board any longer, but I hope that you will consider all of these facts before you vote to withdraw from the STEM school after the next school year. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Erica Clement.
First of all, I'd like to thank the school board for listening to my voice. Last time I had an opportunity to speak and I missed it. And over that, I watched the destructive power of denial take away part of my school. District 131 denied us the ability to continue our school. And I have noticed that all of my friends have been pleading with you to not close this school, because it is truly an enriching experience to meet people that you would otherwise have never even known. And it is an amazing opportunity to learn from people who have had completely different experiences from you. My homeroom teacher in my grade is the most lovable teacher I've ever met, and I would hate to have her taken away. So please, I beg of all of you, please do not close my school. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ron and Aiden Neal. All right. Now I got to see if I missed it. Oh, I pulled it out. Yes. Thank you. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. That concludes public comment. Next on the agenda for discussion is the STEM school. No, we'll be hearing from Adrian for this presentation. Dr. Talley.
That is correct. If I can have There you go. Thank you. Board of Education, members of the Indian Prairie community, tonight I'm going to talk about the STEM school and where we are with it and what is happening and where we're going. Ms. Dino, you're going to, thank you, I'll just say next slides. Origins. The John C. Dunham STEM School has been around for approximately 7 years. The school was created through a collaboration of 4 school districts and Aurora University. The school is governed by a 5-member governing board that is comprised of the president of Aurora University and the superintendents from the 4 districts that send their children to the school. Next slide, please. There were some long-term goals that were created for the STEM school, in addition to short-term goals. What you see on the slide are just 4 of these goals. I did not put them all. There have been mixed results related to these outcomes. From a positive standpoint, the outcomes of students doing well academically and teachers being mentored by the university, we can say that those outcomes were met very positively. On the other hand, we've had mixed results with Indian Prairie school teachers becoming STEM leaders in the school district, and the rotation of teachers from the STEM school back to the school district. We have one teacher who's been at the STEM school all 7 years. There have been 2 other teachers who did rotate. Additionally, we have not taken advantage or have used the professional development to the level that was originally thought. Now, I want it to be known that what I've just said is the same for all 3 districts. It is not just in Indian Prairie. It is across all 4 districts that the rotation has not been happening, the STEM leadership has not occurred, nor has the professional development happened at any of the districts at the level that it should have been. A reminder that the STEM school was built as a laboratory school, one that would be used to gather best practices and to be used back in the districts, and that was the goal of the STEM school originally. Next slide. We currently have 48 students in the STEM school here from Indian Prairie, grades 3 through 8. Each year, there is a lottery by which students are selected for the school. Over the past few years, we have seen a decline in the number of people applying for the 3rd grade lottery. The 3rd grade lottery has 8 openings, and you can see in school year 18-19, we had 60 people apply. School year 19-20, 52. In school year 2021, 48 people apply. Next slide, please. Enrollment cost. The cost of the STEM school is above and beyond our normal operating expenses. For all 4 districts, the costs are approximately the same with some slight variations, including transportation. Indian Prairie spends approximately $550,000 for the 48 students we send to the STEM school at a cost of approximately $11,500 per child. We currently provide 2 teachers to the STEM school. Originally, we provided 3 teachers. Because those teachers are at the school, as a system, we backfill the current 2 positions and hire 2 more teachers. Therefore, the cost of per child for the STEM school is actually higher than the $11,500 that you see there, because it is not including the cost of the additional teachers we have back in the school district who we originally filled to take care of the positions that went to the STEM school. Our costs include such things as extracurricular, classroom hardware, the split cost of the administrative assistant at the STEM school, nursing support, business office support, and various other items that come into running a school. So the proposal. Earlier this year, the STEM board met to discuss the evaluation of the STEM school. This is a yearly evaluation of the program. At that time, questions were raised about the outcomes of the school and what was and was not being met. It was determined at that time that each district needed to go back and talk about the program. A couple of months ago, there was another STEM board meeting with discussions about the outcomes. At that point, there were beginning discussions about dissolving the STEM school. The agreement states that if 3 districts and then to pull out of the STEM school, the school will close. As of today's meeting, Aurora East has consented to submitting a letter to withdraw from the STEM school. Aurora West and Batavia have had discussions about withdrawing and will vote on the decisions later this month. I believe that their meetings will be next week. I am suggesting tonight that we also consider withdrawing from the STEM school. We currently serve only 48 students in the program. We can use the funding that we are currently using for the STEM and apply it to expand our STEM opportunities in our schools. Currently, our middle school students have STEM opportunities, including Project Lead the Way. We would be able to use our funds to hire a STEM coordinator, which is something we have never had in Indian Prairie, and expand the STEM programs across the elementary schools and expand the current growth mindset that every school should have in place. Additionally, we would expand the professional development that has not really been in place, and Aurora University has said it would potentially continue to offer the campus for summer school opportunities and to re-engage in the Saturday Morning Scholars Program for students and staff from the 4 districts. I will bring this issue back to the board for its decision at our April 26th meeting, so before the May STEM board meeting. And now I will take any questions from the board.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from Board Member Peel?
Did you say Peel?
Peel.
A couple years ago, I was asked to be, as a board member, to be on the panel for the conference regarding the STEM school. And what I felt was the most important part of the school was the collaboration that created it. It was quite extensive. It started probably the first year I was on the board. It started with meetings that I had no idea they were talking about a STEM school down the road. It was getting to know what did the community want, and it was led by Aurora University. And then it evolved into this STEM school collaboration with, these huge corporations that are wanting to be a part of this mission of educating our kids. So it is really hard. My heart goes out to these families that did make a commitment. On the other hand, I know that that collaboration takes a commitment from each partner. And I'm hoping this is the time that we can bring a substantial program that incorporates STEM into our learning. That has always been the dream of many of the people who have supported STEM in our community. It's actually a much natural way to learn for our kids. So it makes it more engaging. It makes it just a wonderful learning community. So I guess my only question is that do we have the time to put that together within a year? Because I do feel like you're right. We've never had a STEM coordinator, and we started a lot of good programs. We had people at the high school level and at the middle school level ready and willing to take that on. I think the PTAs have taken on much of our STEM programming, and it's time for us to take it on as an administration, as the leaders of the schools. Do we have the capacity to do that now, I guess is my question to you, Dr. Talley.
Yes, as I mentioned, hiring a STEM coordinator now gives us a full year to put into place what you're asking about. What we're talking about is how do we incorporate STEM throughout the curriculum so it's not necessarily a standalone, but then also what are the other enhancements that we could do through after-school programs or within the school day to support our children who have an interest in STEM. I'm not talking about hiring someone 6 months from now. I would like to hire them now so that they can do that work with STEM committees, work with parents to determine what is it that we can put in place for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you. Comments from Ms. Grover?
I'm trying to understand why we didn't bring up the issues or with the other schools, and that other schools had the same concerns. How we got so far along with AU that these concerns weren't brought up, that they weren't sharing the PD, or that we weren't rotating our teachers.
It's a great question. I can't speak about the time before I arrived. So I don't know why these questions weren't being asked at that point in time. I can tell you that when we were at a board meeting, when we were talking about the evaluation of the STEM school, I did ask about what were the evaluation components, and were we rotating our staff? And the answer was no. And were we providing the professional development? And the answer was not really. And so but to the point of understanding why this didn't occur before now, I can't speak to that.
Right. And I know about the middle school PLTW. My kids have gone through it in the high school. It's a great program. And I think the main crux of this is the elementary part of it, because we do have it in middle and high school. The teacher that did come back, was that an elementary teacher, and were they able to bring anything to the school district, or did we learn anything from that teacher who came back?
We did not make them a STEM leader necessarily, as the plan was. I'd have to go back and check to see if that person was an elementary or a middle school person. I don't want to give out wrong information.
Right. I think somebody mentioned that the PTA is the one in elementary school, which is true. The PTAs are the ones that lead like the science fairs at the elementary school level, and we don't have those at the middle school, but we do have the PLTW. I think my concern is kind of like Kathy's, just having something at the elementary level would be good, for the STEM base.
I would agree with you. I think the STEM coordinator would be one of those people who could make that happen. We currently do not have, for example, a math coordinator. We have not since 2008, when the Great Recession hit, and we had to cut about $40 million out of our budget. And so without those people, it is very difficult to have a specific program in place. And so using the funds to put in for someone for STEM whose focus is in that area, again, working with the community about what they feel is important, I think would allow for us to have something at the elementary level and at the middle school level.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, to get the feedback from the parents and the students at the STEM school to see what they liked the best, the collaboration, which I know we're doing a lot. We just introduced the career readiness days in elementary school and things like that, collaboration. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And what I would also say about the collaboration, as I toured the schools when I was here last January and March, I saw collaboration happening in our schools. I know teachers are doing that type of work now. How do we add STEM to it and incorporate that throughout the program? As one of the students mentioned, they are doing music, and STEM can be part of music and art, and I have seen it as a teacher in an elementary school where we would do a science musical every year. So all of that can happen.
Thank you, Board Member Grover. Board Member Donahue, any discussion, questions?
So I'm, as an engineer, I'm always looking at ways that we can push STEM, and I love the enthusiasm of the speakers and the love that they have of the subject matter, and I want to have that love extended throughout our whole district, so we need your help if we decide to move away from the STEM school. I remember when I first got elected 4 years ago, there were two speakers that would consistently come and speak on the same topic, or multiple speakers on the topics. One was about the STEPS program, and the other was on the STEM school and class sizes. And they would constantly, like week after week, come and speak about how awful it is that our classes are so large, and that one of the things they pointed at was the expense of STEM, and why do we have that? And so I know Susan will probably say this too. We went over and toured the school, and it was impressive, it was exciting, it was a clever, unique environment, and we need to make that environment what we have in all of our schools. So, you know, I really like Project Lead the Way for the middle school and high school. I agree with Ms. Grover's comments that we need focus on the elementary school. I like the idea of hiring a coordinator that is pushing this throughout. Sometimes we integrate STEM and you don't even know it. I saw the kindergartners playing with these ladybug things, and they were actually programming them. And so it's a skill that we want to instill in all of our students, because when they leave 204 and are out in the working world eventually, there's probably not an area, a career that you will work in that doesn't require that. So I want to see that excitement, enthusiasm, and love throughout our district for the topic of STEM. And so we need everyone's help to make sure that that happens. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Board Member Deming?
As Lori stated, you know, one of the areas that I was really concerned about and wanted to really visit and understand was the STEM school from the very first year that we were here. And the collaboration was immense, looking at students truly enjoying education and the opportunities. I was always very concerned that I didn't see that brought back, which had been discussed, brought back to our schools. And so that was a concern, because two things. One, it is critical, I've been doing some research, it's critical that we see STEM, science, math, expounded amongst all of our students nationwide. And as an African American female, I am extremely focused on wanting to see students of all racial ethnicities expanding their understanding, because there are some that are not as strong in those areas. And so I want to see that throughout our school district. We have such wonderful teachers, we have creativeness. I like the idea of bringing in someone who is focused on STEM, a STEM coordinator. My only concern is wanting to have someone focused at the elementary, someone focused at the middle school level. I think we do a great job at the high school level. One of the things that I always appreciated is every year we had an update on the STEM school and how what was happening. And one of the things, and I apologize, Dr. Tell, I should have asked you earlier, but the results, the comparisons of academically of our students at the STEM school versus academically our students here. And I know at least for a couple years, our students here within the district, those scores were higher than the ones at the STEM school. And I can't speak for all districts, I'm just talking about our district. So I would just like to see us make sure that we can bring some additional focus at the elementary school level. And I'm not sure what your conversations are with the entire board. If there was a way to see consideration for those students that are there being able to continue, not us accepting anymore, I will throw that out. But if there's any possibility or consideration on that particular thought process, and I'm certain you guys may have discussed that already, but I'll throw that out as well.
There was discussion about it. It doesn't mean that we won't come back to it at all. The one issue of allowing children to stay until they complete either, and there have been a couple of discussions. One, that they finish out either their elementary program or their middle school program, or that they finish out the entire program. We would most likely end up with multi-level classes in one grade taught by one teacher. Because of attrition happening, that's just the only way it would work. But it is something that was discussed and will be, I'm certain the board will continue to look at that at our May meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Deming. Board Member Rising.
So I guess questions. How have you seen, Dr. Talley, other districts that have had a STEM director, and what type of things have you seen happen or change? You know, I'm just trying to get a sense, and you might not know this because I'm sure that STEM director is going to have their own focus, but you know, I want to understand how that looks, because if we're going to take money from the STEM school and repurpose it in our own district, I want to make sure that we're getting our money's worth and there's progress happening in our district. So,
several things come to mind. One, the STEM coordinator could work very closely with AU and the professional development. That could happen for our teachers. That's one way. Two, looking at our curriculum and seeing how STEM is integrated in currently and how to expand it, especially at the elementary level and middle school level. Three, I talked about summer programs with AU, how we can organize those summer programs either at AU or how we have them for our own, within our own school setting. Indian Prairie does not have anyone who oversees summer programming. It's done by the current staff. Other school districts have those people. So a STEM coordinator would be able to define a summer program as well for STEM, for students who have an interest in STEM. And then I think finally is having that, as I mentioned a few times, the dialogue with the community about what they need, not just the parent community, but was mentioned by some of the parents who spoke tonight, also about with the business community, about what children, what they need from people going forward. So those are just some of the ways in which our coordinator could make this happen.
And you mentioned the summer thing, going back to the professional development, and you know, especially when it comes to curriculum, and you know, what was really special about the STEM, or is special about the STEM school, is really how they immerse the kids, and really a lot more hands-on, working with these corporate entities. You know, it's truly a hands-on immersion type of experience, inquiry-based and everything else. And we got a lot of the inquiry-based stuff with the NGSS, with the science standards, but is that where you see this going as well, as far as really, because that's kind of one of the assurances that I want to have, is that our teachers, our leaders, whether it's with the STEM director or whether it's with the university, that we make sure that we take on a lot more of that internally professional development.
I would agree with everything you said there, and I would add that the coordinator could then also ensure that every school has a STEM liaison, if you will. That person could ensure that what's happening in that school, because when you have a coordinator who cannot be in all the buildings all the time, but you have a liaison, that's how you create more consistency of the program across all of our elementary schools and all of our middle schools.
And then just, you know, a comment. I mean, like Kathy had mentioned, I mean, you know, this STEM school is one of the most special things I've ever seen. I hope that maybe there's a way we can let some of those kids finish out, but it kind of leaves us in not a favorable position when other districts really want to kind of bring it in-house and really expand their own programs. I'm trying, and thank you to the speakers, thank you to the students. You know, I think it's a wonderful program, but I also have to look at things of what benefits our district too, right? So, you know, I'm looking forward to hearing how we can expand things. I'm hoping there's still things that can take place, not only this year, but maybe even more, depending on what the governing board discusses. And then, you know, I'll have to make my mind up when you bring it back to us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Rising. Board Member Razak, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with you. I want to reaffirm what I'm hearing some of the board members, Kathy brought up first, about the STEM commitment. Clearly, for better or worse, STEM became a grassroots effort, really, as she said, from parents and several interested scientists in the district long ago. I have that historical perspective. The STEM school was an innovative way to try to bring not only to the students at STEM, but back to the district, an emphasis on STEM instruction. We'll miss an opportunity if we don't have a STEM commitment. And I think it's really important. So I agree with the elementary emphasis and the STEM commitment that needs to be given. I appreciate the fact that we're considering a STEM coordinator because we have to move forward. I guess I have a couple just questions. One, in discussions with Aurora University, what is the viability of the school if even one of those districts pull out? I mean, when does the school not become a viable entity?
So, Mr. Razak, the issue with Aurora University is the cost involved for them. If it's only one district doing the school, it would become almost prohibitive for that university to run the program. So I think that is one of the major issues that we would have with just one district left in the program.
Okay. Has the governing board, one of the parents today talked about working with the business partners. Have we reached out to those business partners yet to see their support either of the STEM program or of individual districts' STEM program?
So Aurora University has reached out to the government entities, meaning those who put this into play several years ago, and reaching out to the business companies as well. To your point about your question, I'd have to go back and check with regards to the specificity of your question and what they've said to the business partners.
Okay, thank you. Again, I just want to reaffirm that we clearly need a STEM commitment for the district. We'll miss a great opportunity if we do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Razak. My comments, if this school were our own school, we would never close it with this process in this time frame without community input or thorough analysis. We just saw a process that would last a year, multiple stages, community input. Well, this is our school, and I don't support the district closing this school with this process. No. I recognize that the decision to continue this doesn't rest solely with this board. It is a partnership. And when you lose a partner, the partnership ends up dissolving. So I understand why the time frame got accelerated, but the agreement also doesn't require that the district support the dissolution or the withdrawal or the closing. And I think we show a stronger position and a stronger commitment to the community, to our partners, to the university, if we do say, no, we want to continue doing this, knowing full well that we might have to, that the decision might not be ours, and we have to adopt other proposals and other means. But because a different board votes does not control my vote here. That's all I have to say. That concludes the discussion on the STEM school. Next on the agenda is a discussion on summer learning. We are going to hear from Mr. Icarius and Mr. Purcell, if they are still here. Doug and Mike, take the stand.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Talley, Board of Education members, and the community for allowing us to present about some summer learning opportunities. With me this evening is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction at the secondary level, Mr. Mike Purcell. But this involves a lot more people out in our buildings as well. It involved many members in our curriculum department, including Mrs. Tara Fowler and Mrs. Joan Peterson, who are at middle school and elementary. It also involved many of our principals, our assistant principals, and many of their leadership teams in their building, as we've tried to continue to provide learning opportunities in this very unique school year. So with that, what we would like to do this evening, and I just want to preface this with, we, outside of extended school year, we haven't provided a lot of summer learning opportunities. We've tried to grow some things over the past couple of years when we've responded to situations and try to help students be prepared. Today we're going to talk a little bit about extending on some of those, and then what are some new offerings that we're looking to do just to support many of our both disengaged and struggling learners, and how to give them a boost as we prepare for next year. At the same time, we know that this year was a very different learning experience for our students and for all of our students, and that we're going to be looking at how do we support them during the year next year as well. But we have many students who need some intensive supports, I think, to help re-engage for next school year as well. In this lesson, in this presentation, we'll talk about the focus, some logistics, what COVID mitigation we'll have in place, a little bit about tuition, financials, and timeline. So our focus is to provide additional support for students who've been adversely impacted during the current school year to boost their academic and executive skills as they prepare for the 2021-22 school year. When we talk about adversely impacted, we talk about multiple measures: grades, assessments, attendance, feedback from staff members. We're also going to look at how we provide more support in the credit recovery option area, and try to give you a broad picture, include what we do for 204 online courses, as well as our partnership with College of DuPage. So first, at the elementary level, one of the things, new offerings that we have this year actually came through. You've probably seen some information about the 21st Century Grant, and we have the Beyond the Bell program. This is a grant that we received this year. We're receiving up to $300,000 per year, up to 5 years. Only 2 of our schools qualified for this grant. We were excited when they received it, and that's Longwood and Georgetown. We've been doing many after-school clubs for them, as well as some Saturday offerings, and then this is going to extend for some new offerings this summer. Those 2 offerings are Summer Lit Camp, which comes through Scholastic, and then Camp Invention, which is more of a National Inventors Hall of Fame program. They do a lot of hands-on, student engaging, discovering world problems and inventions and working through that. We do have up to 250 students across Georgetown and Longwood who are going to participate in that summer, those summer learning opportunities, and those are 100% funded through that 21st Century Grant. Now, the second part of this is our academic boosts. The dates we're looking at to support this would be towards the end of the summer. We're seeing that students and our staff members do need a little bit of rest and time for breaks. So it did appear that end of the summer looked like the best opportunity to provide this. And we're looking at the last 2 weeks of July and the first week of August. We would run it through Monday through Thursday. We're right now working with all of our building principals, both in identifying students, identifying staff, recruiting staff, and also how can we support this program. There's a good chance that we might be looking at elementaries based on middle school clusters for them. So our 3 elementaries that go to one middle school might be working together to provide it in one building. So that we can appropriately staff it and meet the needs of the students. We're also looking at this that it would be pretty high intense with math, reading, and writing. We're really looking that it would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday would be pretty intense in those 3 areas. And Thursday we'd be bringing a little bit more fun into it, maybe bring in-house field trips in, do other kind of activities where they can apply some of those skills and make it a little bit more real-life experiences. We really want it to be, to provide us as much opportunity to re-engage students who we know have struggled during this time. At the middle school, we're trying to do it during that same time period, a 3-week course to support students who've been, once again, impacted in different ways. They'll be the last 2 weeks of July and the first week of August. It's at middle school going to be much more cross-curricular. That means we're going to include many different academic kind of skill sets while they're learning. We're going to include physical education. They're going to do things where they might go outside and do some gardening outside of the school as they incorporate, math, reading, writing, STEM activities to make it as engaging as possible, and really wanting students to want to attend school and to get ready for the new school year. We see this as a runway to help students get, once again, re-engaged. And it would be aligned with the middle school model, just supporting the whole child. What are those things we can do to support those young adolescents? From there, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Purcell.
Thanks, Doug. The Summer Bridge program is something that we've done to transition students from 8th grade to 9th grade for the last 3 summers. We have this at all 3 of the high schools. It would happen in that same time frame that Doug was talking about in terms of what we're doing for elementary and middle school, really looking at focusing and helping our freshmen enter our schools more comfortable and confident. We look at a variety of things. We do some math and some literacy, but really a lot of mindset, a lot of belongingness, some orientation, just kind of feeling like you know your way around. This is a real partnership that's happening. Was actually some meetings happening as this morning, and then some later this week and into next week. A partnership between the coordinators from each high school and the middle schools to really sit down and say, who are those students that really may need this beyond the school readiness days that we do, where we bring kids in and we do some orientation things, that this is beyond that. It's 12 days over the summer, a little more intense, and just really to get their feet under them so they feel like they are more poised for success coming into our high schools. And the need for that is a variety of different things. Sometimes it's a little more academic, sometimes it's a little more social emotional, sometimes it's, this year what we're going to see is some kids maybe haven't been in the building as much as other students, and can we give them some opportunities to be in the building and see that it's going to be okay. In fact, it's going to be better than okay. They're going to come into a place, like here at Metea Valley, where we're going to welcome them with open arms, and they're going to thrive. So that's really the purpose of Summer Bridge. We're looking at making sure that we meet the needs of kids, that really the middle schools identify, and if that's a little more than it had been in past years, we're prepared to scale that up a little bit and to attach some extra adults to that. We want to make sure we keep the ratios to that really tight, because we know that is some of the success that we've had with this program over time. And those are things that we've been doing at all three schools. In the next slide, we'll talk about things that we're doing for students that are already in our high schools, which is credit recovery. That we have students that have been very successful no matter what our delivery systems have been this year, and changing and been very nimble. And we have students that have gained a lot of skills that are sort of beyond the classroom and beyond the academic skills. We do have students that have struggled with that and struggled with earning credits, and have fallen off path on the graduation pathway. We want to make sure that we capture that time this summer to engage those kids and keep them on their pathways. And we know that work won't be done this summer, that we're going to have to do some things. We're doing some things, we've been doing some things since January to do that. We're going to have to do some more in the fall, but we want to scoop up as many of those kids as we can over the summer. We're looking at 2 different windows of time. The first one in June, really to knock down and partner with those kids and families and say, where are those places where we're close, but we need to get across the line, make sure that you are not only earning credit, you've demonstrated that you have enough of the skills and the content knowledge to be ready, but also that you're ready to be successful in whatever that next class might be, right? And then in that July window, which would run concurrently with Summer Bridge, would be a completely separate thing, but we can leverage sort of some shared transportation to do some more intense, some kids that really need some more time, and we can dedicate and really dig in with them. Probably a smaller group of kids that could be there for a more extended day, that we can really get them back towards being ready and recovering that credit that maybe they weren't able to get while the school year was going on and all the unusualness that came along with it.
Yeah, we typically have a plan laid out where students would finish in 4 years and meet all their graduation requirements and have enough credits to graduate. And then there are things that occur that might take them off that path, and this is an opportunity to help them get back on that path. So that they wouldn't have to do a 5th year or think about we don't want them thinking about other options like not finishing high school. So this is really an opportunity to get them back on track.
We want to take this opportunity to share some work that we've been doing over time and just remind the board and the community of some things that are going on for our summer. Really, these are more focused on advancement. And our 204 Online, which really was born out of the ELO partnership that had dissolved a little more than a year ago. And last year was the first time that we ran this program outside of the ELO partnership. Laura Nyland on our team really takes the lead on this, and I'm here kind of talking on her behalf, but has done a nice job of these course offerings and making sure that they are more now aligned to the 204 regular school year courses than they had been in the past. Obviously, in a partnership, you have to compromise some, and it's not exactly what we do every day here. These sessions run 2 sessions. Each session is a semester. There's the June session, which bleeds a little bit into July, and the July session, which would start up after the July 4th. As of this morning, Laura informed me that there are approximately 1,300 students enrolled, which is an update from last week. That's right, actually right on track with what we experienced last year. Last year we had 1,600 students that enrolled. She anticipates by the end of this month that we'll be right at about the same number. At that point, we start sectioning out, and through May, really just look at kind of filling in available seats, because we have to do some staffing through May and get some things set up. So that has been, we started enrollment about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and have had quite a response. So these classes will be what we offer through 204 online, all 204 teachers, all through the Canvas platform, and all 204 curriculum.
It's also only current high school students who would be eligible to take these classes over the summer, not any incoming high school students, just current high school students would be eligible for this.
And that is the same with our COD partnership. COD had been the summer school provider for us for many years. This partnership really was born out of the era of austerity, and wanted to not be in the summer school business, and partnered with COD to use our facilities and to engage with our teachers. It's been a good partnership over time. As we are building 204 online, the classes that we offered in both 204 online, the old ELO, and the COD partnership, we've pivoted those to just be offered through the 204 run programs. But these classes will be offered on the north side and the south side of town. We have Spanish 1, 2, and 3, some math classes, and some science classes. Again, those are for current high school students only. That's when we start our high school transcripts, and that's when we start enrolling students in those classes.
Just some COVID mitigation strategies that you can expect that would still continue to be in place through our summer learning opportunities. We would still be doing self-certification. We will have 3 to 6 feet of physical distancing. We're hoping to keep it closer to 6 feet, which keeps us with small groups. But also, in case any students test positive, 2 weeks of a 3-week summer program would be very challenging, and we do not have a plan at this point in time to room and Zoom during our summer learning. We're hoping to take advantage of in-person learning during most of these opportunities. So as I said, small groups, people will be expected to continue wearing masks. We'll be encouraging hand hygiene and our cleaning practices, and one of the benefits of the summer is usually a little bit more predictable, nice weather to be able to head outside as much as we're able to do as well. Tuition, everything that we're presenting here tonight except for the COD enrichment offerings and the 204 Online Academy, we're presenting it as being tuition free, that there would be no cost to our families. The 204 online is still at $185 per course. This is consistent from previous years. And the College of DuPage and enrichment offerings would be consistent with what they've offered in the past for that coursework. We are looking at supporting the funding for these summer learning opportunities through the federal COVID relief funding that's been coming in. As one of the things that they highly recommend are, supporting summer learning opportunities for those students who are in a significant need of that, as well as during the year supports. As we're preparing for this, I just wanted to give the board an idea kind of a maximum cost estimation that we're seeing through this. I think we're going to be significantly under this when all said and done. At elementary, obviously with the 21st Century Grant, that's all funded through the federal grant. For the academic skills boost, right now we have it set where that could support us in approximately 120 classes to be able to offer throughout the summer. So if we had a certain number of students at every grade level elementary across every building, even if we're combining those into one building, it is possible that we might have multiple sections at certain grade levels. I don't think we'll have that many people both taking us up on that, but also looking at how many staff we'll have available to teach those sections. We do see minimal in resources, some learning resources, possibly some snacks during that time as well. And then transportation, the number I have in there right now is if we did 7 elementaries with 3 buses at each elementary for that entire period of time to get to that figure. At the middle school, because they were doing much more cross-curricular, what we're looking at is supporting them with about $15,000 per middle school, which will be split among both staffing and resources to make that cross-curricular approach and to really focus on re-engaging those students. And with that, we have an estimate of possibly 2 buses per middle school. That's where you see the $50,400 there for that entire 3-week period. And then when we get into high school summer programs, we see credit recovery. We have a staffing cost. I think it's going to probably be high. What you see there is going to be higher than where we're at. It's going to be dependent on how many students actually do take advantage of the credit recovery options. We do find that a lot of students do turn us down on those options, but we are preparing to meet as many student needs as possible. Resources, a lot for the credit recovery does go into licenses through our Apex. It's approximately $175 per student license. And at that cost there, we're looking at about 100 licenses per each high school. And then we would also look at providing transportation for those students as well. We'll minimize some of the transportation costs there because the second part of credit recovery would line up with our summer bridge program, and so we think we can take advantage of that in trying to get those students there at that time on those buses. And so for summer bridge, we do have site coordinators and 6 instructors typically. We do know that we will we'll be encouraging more students to take advantage of that this year. And then we do have some minimal resources there. And then some transportation at high school, we do see a little bit more where they're oftentimes very busy in the summer, and so juggling the schedules, a lot of them are getting dropped off at school versus taking the bus so they can move on to the next thing as well. And so those are our estimated costs that I do also think could be made up in some of the other areas, because I don't think we'll see that many buses that we'll have to use at the elementary either. So we just wanted to give an idea of the costs. We would have that funding available through the, as I said, COVID relief funding, but just wanted to give an idea of what that could look like. A couple of questions that come up is most of these programs, we are targeting students that we've seen that are either maybe not as engaged, their grades might be suffering, their assessments aren't performing where we would want to see them performing, or just other concerns that we're seeing about how they're feeling about school and how we can support them. Our high schools work with our middle schools on trying to make sure that we're supporting the students that need support. And as I said, we think this year we're going to have to extend on that as well. For the timeline, the 21st Century Grant students already know and have been invited. The registration for the 204 online courses and College of DuPage courses have been and are still open. And then our students who would benefit from the district offered courses are being identified and will begin getting invitations now. Some of them are already working and contacting families. And we anticipate that going through about mid-May because we want to make sure that, if certain students can't take advantage of that we open that up to additional students because we want to fill those courses with as many teachers that we have willing and able to come in and teach for those opportunities. And then other enrichment offerings are still being considered due to that increase in federal grant money. We're having conversations here and there about, incoming kindergarten students and how can we support them, as well as, Maybe there's, different offerings for maybe science or things that we're having those conversations. As you know, we haven't offered a lot of summer school opportunities in our district in a while, and so we're trying to really look at what are those other opportunities and how can we build on that. So with that, Mr. Purcell, you have anything to add?
That's perfect.
All right. With that, we'll take questions.
Oh, hearing none? No. Board Member
What do you say?
Demi, do you have any questions, discussion?
Thank you so much for the presentation, Mike and Doug, really appreciate it. Doug, one concern that I've often had is what's happening with those families that we haven't been able to get in touch with, or those kids that haven't been there. Have we had more success in getting some of those kids in school, and do you have any ideas of percentages or that you can?
I would say some success, yes. I still think, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're looking at as we approach next year is re-engagement. And we're looking at, middle school was very much wanting to make sure that this was exciting and fun to try and re-engage students who seem, like that school might not be their top priority right now, and really looking at how can we bring that back. So I would say it's a little bit mixed on successes about how we're re-engaging. There's a lot of effort being put in. We're constantly trying every method of communication to reach out to families, calling students, calling parents, emailing, trying to figure out whatever we have available to get in touch with them, because we want to help all students be successful and really get back focused on what does it mean to be a learner. We're having those discussions right now about what is that going to look like for all students when we start school next year, about what does it mean to be a learner in high school, in middle school, in first grade. What does that look like? What are the skills that we want them to have? But we know we've got to get students engaged first.
On some of I love what we're looking at Georgetown and Longwood. Are there going to be requirements? And I guess it's hard but are there going to be requirements? Will we fill those particular opportunities with those students at those schools? And if not, can we have students from other schools who need those opportunities come in? Will we make sure those classes are filled?
We're actually not allowed to, but when we commit with families, they have to commit to that program. We take attendance every day at those programs. We have to report that back on the grants. We are not allowed to invite students who are not in those two buildings. When we originally applied for the grant, we were hoping that we could include a few more buildings in that, but they had to hit a certain mark to even qualify for that with their free and reduced lunch. And so we just had two buildings in that mode. We have had a few parents reach out to us after they saw the video saying, is there any way my child can be a part? And they're not at that school, and so we weren't able to do that. However, right now, we're piloting all these different things through the 21st Century Grant, so we are looking at how can we expand this across the district. It would be a significant cost to us, Camp Invention it's a pretty expensive program that we're lucky to have the grant covering that, but we are exploring what are some other opportunities we can take away from there, as well as some of our after-school clubs that have gone really well. We have a Grow Club, we have a Math Recess Club, we have many different opportunities that we're providing students that we're looking at how could we replicate this in the future with more students, and what does the funding look like to support that?
And my last question, just on the middle school, are we doing it all middle schools, or are we doing it at?
Yeah, our schools are working on having that at all 7 middle schools right now. And seeing how we can support that. And some are off and running. Other ones are working on, really trying to see how can they, work more on those. And who are they going to have that's going to be able to instruct during that time period? That's a big factor as well. It's why we needed to, give a little bit of time for some rest and rejuvenate, and then, have that runway for the start of next school year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Deming. Board Member Rising.
Two quick questions, if you can hear me. So first of all, thanks for identifying, Doug, that at these programs, elementary, middle, and high school, majority of these, the staff or the buildings are identifying the kids that really need these supports. Thank you for bringing that up. Just continue on what Ms. Deming mentioned and what you mentioned, Doug. From an SEL standpoint, I hope as much as possible we're continuing to identify all our kids. All our teachers identify our kids, see where they're at, because we got kids that are suffering from trauma from COVID, all the way to kids that are suffering because they haven't been in school and because of lockup. So, I hope we can continue to identify those kids and gauge where they are at, right? So we get a jump running, in the fall. I hope we also continue to get data and assess as best as possible. I know we were talking about moving to maybe some different testing options that we were talking at the board retreat. Have we, or did you think about, and I don't want to open a can of worms up here, but did you think about not necessarily tutors per se, although I would love tutors, at all different levels for either literacy or math, and if not tutors, like to make the staff more available. And by the way, let me just preface by saying, staff, thank you for all you're doing, and I know you want to have a summer off, but our kids really need you too. Have we looked at making staff more available, or even looking at tutors, especially in those areas of literacy and math, and again, all levels, because we know those benchmarks at 3rd, 8th, 6th, 8th, 11th are key to hit some of those benchmarks.
Yeah, great question. We're actually having a lot of conversations about that right now, about how we can support all learners next year. We know that we're going to have to be very intentional with our SEL and supporting all students when they return to us next school year. But in that same note, we're looking at the COVID relief funding and what are the additional supports that we can have in place that are going to help us bridge the next few years in how do we support all learners. And some of those, like you said, we have amazing teachers, we have amazing staff. I believe we had over 90 teachers who signed up to do the ACE that we talked about at the elementary level, where students can access that in after the school day to access for supports. And we're looking at those as options for next school for all students during the year, and making that an opportunity and using our COVID funds to be able to support that. But we're also looking at it, what can we do at the middle school and high school level? We're working with the buildings right now on different types of supports. We have committees right now looking at next year and what is that going to look like and what do we need to have in place. So we're getting that information from them, whether it's having certain staff members identified to focus on certain students who they know might be struggling, and how can they work with their parents, work with them, making sure to get them back on track, but as well as other things that can just be accessible for all students. So we are 100% looking at that and looking at the opportunities, and know that that's also a great use of that funding, that we're getting the federal funding to be able to support us in that process.
Great, thanks.
Let me just add one bit to all of what you discussed. The issue of staff being a little bit tired is a nationwide issue. As you are reading the national papers, the educational journals, you will find that many school districts are finding it difficult to find staff to work during the summertime. I will echo what was said as well about our teachers are fabulous and outstanding, and they are. And so as we look at this, we have to look at also their, as you mentioned, mental health. One of the things that we are doing is looking at how to hire someone who can oversee mental health across the whole district. We don't have that in place, and I think that will also help us going forward. And finally, about tutoring, there are multiple ways in which tutoring can and should be done, and so we are examining, as Mr. Akarius mentioned, using our funds to hire these tutors who can support our students.
Yeah, when you look at the across our entire summer programming, one of the things that you didn't see up here because it was already presented was about ESY and extended school year. We also know that we need a lot of staff to make that happen, and that's required through IEPs for our students. And so we have a lot of staff that we're reaching out to try and you know, I mean, we just have such committed, amazing staff that we're reaching out to see how many would be available this summer to you know, continue to support our students in what we know was already a you know, challenging school year.
Board Member Donahue?
So if I look at slide 12, and I'm not looking at the financial part, but just the list of programs, and the 21st Century is new, and I know the ELO changes allowed us some new flexibility. But if I look at this list, and if it wasn't a COVID year, would I still find this list of programs, or how are they different from a non-COVID school year?
Yeah, well, on the, you wouldn't see the academic skills boost, those two areas. Those are the two biggest ones you see. The other, this is a lot more credit recovery than we would do in a typical year. And then Summer Bridge, we're trying to expand that to more students who we want to support as we move on. So those are the areas that you see would look different than in a typical school year. The biggest ones being the academic skills boost, and how can we support those students as we prepare for the 21-22 school year.
I would also add, I think as we look at the summer of 2022, the summer of 2023, we would see some additions added. We've talked about the need for a summer school coordinator who could create some of our programs as well to enhance what was already enhanced this year.
Okay, and then for our remote learners, the ones that cannot come in person, is there anything that we have to offer them?
We have discussed that at the buildings about what other opportunities do we have there. I think it's going to be important for us to first engage with those families and look at why why aren't you sending your child for in-person learning, and then seeing what do we need to do to help support those families. So there will be some, we might see, especially at the elementary level, we might find that we need to offer a remote section to support some students. But it's really going to be reaching out to families and seeing how we can support them. We also need people to be engaged and be available. We're hoping to do this in person, but we have discussed that there might be some situations where we're supporting them remotely depending on what those circumstances are. We weren't really looking at providing ways to support them in that capacity just because maybe they're on vacation and it's easier to engage during that time. We are looking at what is causing them not to be able to engage in person at that time. If it's a medical reason that might be causing that, or those things, we want to look at how can we support those families.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for the work, and important for our students to have this offering this summer. So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Grover?
I just have one question. How many students do we think we're going to be able to reach with this program?
That's a tough question. I think what we would be hoping, depending at the different levels, I'm hoping. I mean, we could, with what we have here in funding, possibly connect with. I'm trying to think of. We have the capability of probably reaching, around 1,500 students at the elementary with what's proposed here. I would think at the middle schools that we'd be closer to maybe 300, 350 students there if I had to guess. Now we're preparing at the high schools, Summer Bridge, we could be anywhere close to around, I would say, anywhere from 60 to 75 students per school. And those would be incoming eighth graders for that summer, incoming freshmen for that summer bridge. Credit recovery, that's going to be a hard one to see how many people take advantage of it. In the numbers we put up there, I think like I said, that would include 100 licenses at each of the 3 middle schools under resources. I don't think we'll have that many take advantage of it, but that's what we're preparing for. You already know, for 21st Century Grant, that's going to be 250 additional students. 204 online, we're anticipating we're going to be similar to where we were in the past, which is over 1,500 students that'll take advantage of that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Board Member Peel?
I just have one question too. I was wondering about the seniors. I'm sure there are some seniors who maybe have fallen off. So do any of these programs apply to them so that they can get their diploma?
Yeah,
You want to start with that?
I can help a little bit. So really that would be the focus of our credit recovery, particularly early on. The June credit recovery is to really scoop those kids up and get them across the line. We are, truth be told, most of our work is happening between now and May to close that, right? What we want to do is to get as many kids to walk across that stage or whatever that graduation ceremony looks like as possible, right, in a timely way. But then look at if that's not possible, like if we can't get there, then what are our options in terms of this summer, and then in the most extreme cases, what would that look like in the fall? That number of students that come back to us the next fall is typically very, very low, and what we're hoping to do is to minimize that as much as possible by mostly the work that our schools, they are doing everything that they can, and kids, bringing really, taking and partnering with those kids and families. But then looking at that credit recovery piece, and if we need to use some of the online or COD classes to get those kids across the line over the summer, that's the kind of the next best step. That's kind of option B, and to minimize those kids that might have to return.
Okay, great. Thank
you.
Thank you for everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
Board Member Razak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Akarius, Mr. Purcell. Just a comment. What most excited me beyond that we're offering summer programs for kids who are most in need, is probably the last bullet point, which is other enrichment offerings are still being considered due to an increase in federal grant money. And also Mr. Akarius' statement that summer is just a bridge for the next school year. It's a beginning, not an end. And I think the discussion about re-engagement of our students, what it is to be a learner, and us continue to explore creative options to work with our students during this very difficult time of COVID needs to be encouraged. So thank you for that last bullet point, and thanks for the discussion on re-engaging our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug and Mike. That completes our presentation.
I just want to once again just thank our buildings. They're putting a lot of effort in this, working with their building leadership teams, and we know it'll be a lot of work on their part, and we just want to make sure that we're thanking them as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Considering the hour, I'm going to skip over the legislative advocacy update and the Board of Education update. I am looking for a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.